Arsenal 2003 to 2004. 49 games unbeaten. An entire Premier League season without defeat. But here's what gets forgotten about the Invincibles. They didn't just win, they changed what winning looked like. Patrick Vieira stood 6'3", weighed 180 pounds, and treated the midfield like his personal kingdom. Martin Keown was all elbows and aggression, getting in strikers' faces until they cracked. Ray Parlour ran himself into the ground every match, crunching into tackles with zero apologies. Lauren at right back? Brutal. Sol Campbell? Forget about it. Arsenal had enforcers across the entire pitch, but here's what made them different. They could play the beautiful game too. Vieira would win the ball, then Henry would score. Keown would intimidate the striker, then Bergkamp would unlock the defence. It was violence with purpose. English brutality married to continental technique. Arsenal proved you didn't have to choose between physicality and skill. You could have both, and that terrified everyone. Teams couldn't match Arsenal's technique, and they couldn't outmuscle them either. So they stopped trying to play football and just started kicking. The Battle of Old Trafford in September 2003 ended in chaos. Vieira sent off, Van Nistelrooy missing a last-minute penalty, Arsenal players mobbing him after the final whistle. A year later, Pizzagate. Vieira and Roy Keane squaring up in the tunnel before kickoff. Football was turning into warfare. But Arsenal kept winning, and that forced the Premier League to evolve. Not through rule changes, through cultural shift. Before Arsenal, English football had a binary choice. You were either a technical team that got bullied or a physical team that couldn't pass. Arsenal shattered that. They proved the best team was the one that could do both. Within a few years, every top club followed their blueprint. Signed technically gifted players who could also handle themselves physically. Hire sports scientists, build from the back but dominate in the tackle. Wenger's methods spread everywhere. His fitness regimes, his dietary plans, his emphasis on technical recruitment from abroad mixed with British steel. The foreign influence that English football once resisted became its greatest weapon. Arsenal went unbeaten and didn't just win the league, they changed what the league valued. The future of English football wasn't about choosing between brains and brawn. It was about having both. The Invincibles didn't force the Premier League to change its rules. They forced it to evolve. Stoke City 2008 to 2011. For 3 glorious seasons between 2008 and 2011, they turned football into absolute chaos. And their secret weapon wasn't a £50 million striker, it was Rory Delap's throw-ins. Delap could launch a football over 40 yards, with his hands. Every time the ball went out near the opponent's box, Stoke essentially had a corner kick from the touchline. Defenders panicked, goalkeepers flapped, managers lost their minds. The routine was surgical. Stoke players would dry the ball with towels. Tony Pulis had the ground staff narrow the Britannia Stadium pitch to the minimum allowed width. That gave Delap's throws even more reach. Then he'd wind up like a javelin thrower and hurl it into the 6-yard box. Chaos. Every single time. Stoke finished 12th in their first Premier League season. Then 11th. Then 13th. That's not supposed to happen to newly promoted teams, but Delap's throw-ins were basically set pieces, and Stoke scored 24 goals from them, more than double any other team in Premier League history. Opponents complained, loudly. Then came November 2008. Arsenal travelled to the Britannia Stadium and got dismantled. Both of Stoke's goals in their 2-1 victory came from Delap throw-ins. Arsenal's elegant passing game reduced to rubble by a man with javelin thrower arms. Arsene Wenger snapped. "It is a little bit of an unfair advantage," he said. "He is using a strength that is usually not a strength in football." Wenger lobbied FIFA to replace throw-ins with kick-ins entirely. He tried to ban the towels. According to Stoke winger Liam Lawrence, Wenger tried everything. He tried to change the throw-in law. He tried to prevent Rory from having a towel to dry the ball. All sorts. But the Premier League never changed a single rule. Instead, they adapted. Because that's what football does. Manchester United figured it out first. Don't head it unless it's short. Let Van der Sar collect. Chelsea copied them. Pretty soon, teams spent entire weeks practicing throw-in defence before facing Stoke. West Ham moved their advertising boards to limit Delap's run-up. Hull's Dean Windass got booked for disrupting Delap during his warm-up. The effectiveness faded. Stoke's performance against the same opponents dropped each time they played. The novelty wore off. Teams learned. But the impact lasted. Suddenly, every Premier League team had to game plan for the unexpected. The long throw became a legitimate tactical weapon that coaches studied. Throw-in coaches became a real profession. Liverpool hired Thomas Grimmermark years later specifically for this. Stoke proved something the beautiful game purists hated to admit. Football doesn't belong to one style. If it's legal, it's legitimate. And if it works, it forces evolution. Rory Delap never lifted a trophy, but his arms changed how the Premier League prepared. Teams couldn't just focus on open play anymore. They had to account for everything. The ugly, the unconventional, the stuff that made Wenger cringe. Liverpool 2015 to 2020. Liverpool had rules made to stop them from destroying their own players. Jurgen Klopp arrived in October 2015 and immediately asked one question: why aren't we running faster? Then he made them run faster, and faster, and faster. Liverpool's pressing system under Klopp was relentless, suffocating, and physically impossible to sustain. At least, that's what everyone thought. The system worked like this: press high, press hard, win the ball back within 6 seconds. If you don't, sprint back and press again. Repeat for 90 minutes. Liverpool's running stats shattered records. They covered more ground than any team in Premier League history. Trent Alexander-Arnold, a right-back, was putting up midfielder distances. Mohamed Salah was sprinting like his life depended on it every single match. And it worked. Liverpool won the Champions League in 2019, then the Premier League in 2020, ending a 30-year drought. Back-to-back major trophies. They looked unstoppable. Then the injuries started piling up. Then the pandemic hit. Football paused, restarted, and the schedule became brutal. Matches every 3 days, no rest, no recovery time. By January 2021, Liverpool's entire defence was gone. Virgil van Dijk suffered a season-ending ACL injury in October 2020. Joe Gomez went down with a knee injury in November. Joel Matip's ankle gave out in January. 3 elite centre-backs, all done for the season. Liverpool's system, the one that had made them champions of Europe and England, was eating itself alive. The fixture congestion was exposing what Klopp had been warning about for years. Human bodies couldn't keep up. When football restarted in June 2020 after the pandemic pause, an emergency rule was introduced: 5 substitutions instead of 3. It was supposed to be temporary, a way to protect players during the condensed schedule. But then the Premier League voted to scrap it, back to 3 subs for the 2020 to 2021 season. Smaller clubs feared it would give big teams with deeper squads an unfair advantage. Klopp became the most vocal manager in world football demanding change. He argued that player welfare was being sacrificed for television deals and commercial revenue. The schedule was inhumane. Players needed more rest, more recovery, more rotation options. It's not about Liverpool, Klopp said. It's about protecting players, all players. He kept fighting, and eventually the world listened. The International Football Association Board made the 5 substitution rule a permanent option in 2021. Most major leagues adopted it immediately. The Premier League held out until 2022, finally introducing 5 subs for the 2022 to 2023 season. It was the biggest tactical rule change since the backpass rule in 1992. Suddenly, pressing teams could rotate more. Managers had more control over game management. Liverpool's intensity proved that the sport itself was unsustainable at this pace. Klopp's system forced the game to evolve. The rulebook changed because Liverpool's and the modern game's intensity proved something had to give. Football finally admitted it. The calendar was broken, and if teams were going to play at Liverpool's pace, the rules needed to protect them from themselves.
Manchester United, 1990s to 2013.
Under Sir Alex Ferguson, they bent time itself. Everyone complained about it, nothing changed. Because you can't legislate against belief. Fergie time became part of the sport's mythology, and the thing is, it was real. Old Trafford had this gravitational pull. Somehow, no matter what the referee's watch said, there was always time for one more United attack. Games would hit 90 minutes and then just keep going. 3 minutes became 5, 5 became 7, and United, with the crowd roaring and Ferguson glaring from the touchline, would score. Again and again and again. The numbers backed it up. Ferguson himself said they scored 166 last-minute goals during his reign. Opta analysis from 2010 to 2012 found that 79 seconds more injury time was played when United were losing. That's over a minute of extra football. And it always seemed to happen at home. The most famous example came in 1999, Champions League final. Bayern Munich leading 1-0 deep into stoppage time. United scored twice in injury time. 2 goals, 3 minutes. The treble completed. That match is why Fergie time entered the dictionary. But by the late 2000s, other clubs had enough. The data was too obvious. United were getting more injury time than anyone else, especially at Old Trafford, especially when they were losing. Opponents demanded the FA investigate, monitor referees, hold them accountable, end the favouritism. The FA never changed a thing. Because the truth, Fergie time wasn't about bent referees. It was about psychology. Ferguson's post-match interviews hammered officials who didn't add enough time. His assistant coaches would hold up imaginary watches. The crowd roared like the world was ending. And United never stopped attacking, never gave in. They banged and banged and banged on the door until it broke down. That's not refereeing bias, that's relentless mentality. It took until 2023, a decade after Ferguson retired, for the Premier League to finally reform timekeeping. But that wasn't because of Fergie time. It was because the entire sport had become a time-wasting circus. The 2022 World Cup showed what accurate timekeeping looked like, and English football finally followed. Ferguson retired in 2013, and with him went the myth. Not because rules changed, but because the mentality did. United stopped believing they'd always find a way. And when you stop believing, time runs out, normally. Fergie time proved something football still struggles to accept. The game's not just what's written in the rulebook, it's what's in the players' heads. And you can't legislate against that.
Chelsea 2004 to 2006.
Jose Mourinho walked into Stamford Bridge, looked at English football and said, "You're all doing this wrong." UEFA tried to stop him. They couldn't. Chelsea's first Premier League season under Mourinho, they conceded 15 goals. 15 in an entire 38-game season. It's a record that still stands. Every 1-0 win was choreographed. Every detail was controlled. Players went down at key moments to break up attacks. Substitutions dragged on forever. Goal kicks took an age. Throw-ins happened in slow motion. Mourinho called it intelligence. The rest of the league called it anti-football. But here's the thing, it worked. Chelsea won the league by 12 points. Opponents and referees grew furious at how perfectly Chelsea exploited every loophole. There was no rule they were breaking. They just understood that football is 90 minutes of time management, and they mastered it. If Chelsea scored early, the game essentially ended. They'd slow everything down, control possession deep in their own half, and dare teams to break through their defensive wall. Critics begged the FA to intervene, book players faster, punish time wasting. Almost 20 years later, tactical time wasting are now resulting in yellow cards and more added time, but still not at a satisfying level. Mourinho himself took it even further. At Real Madrid in 2010, he pulled his masterpiece. Champions League group stage, Real Madrid leading Ajax 4-0, already qualified for the knockout rounds. Mourinho instructed Sergio Ramos and Xabi Alonso to pick up yellow cards deliberately, so they'd serve their suspensions in the final dead rubber match and return with clean slates for the knockouts. The plan unfolded on camera. Reserve keeper Jerzy Dudek ran to Casillas, who told the players. Alonso wasted time on a free kick, yellow card. Then Ramos took a goal kick and deliberately wasted time, yellow card. UEFA investigated. Mourinho got a touchline ban. Ramos and Alonso were fined €20,000 each. Real Madrid fined €120,000. When Ramos tried it again in 2019, against Ajax again, he got a 2-match ban instead of 1. UEFA had learned to punish manipulation harder. Mourinho proved something that still drives purists insane. Football isn't just about playing beautifully, it's about winning. And if the rulebook allows it, it's fair game.
Atletico Madrid. Under Diego Simeone, they weaponize football. Since 2011, Simeone turned Atletico into a perfectly orchestrated street fight. Tactical fouls, mass confrontations, players collapsing in exhaustion just to waste time, crowd manipulation, every trick imaginable executed flawlessly. The thing is, it's not cheating, it's control, but it drives opponents absolutely insane. Champions League matches involving Atletico became notorious. The 2014 final against Real Madrid went to extra time and featured constant stoppages, confrontations, and time wasting. The 2016 semi-final against Bayern Munich saw Atletico players cramping up every 5 minutes. Real or fake? Who knows? But it worked. But the match that really exposed their mastery came in March 2022 at Old Trafford. Champions League round of 16. Manchester United needed to overturn a first-leg deficit. Ralf Rangnick's United pushed and pressed, but Atletico turned the game into a masterclass of disruption. After the match, Rangnick was furious. "I don't think the game was played for more than 3 minutes in a row without being interrupted, without somebody lying on the floor," he said. That's how perfectly Simeone had drilled his team to control the clock. UEFA match officials began flagging Atletico specifically for excessive gamesmanship in their reports. The frustration was leaking into official documents, so IFAB stepped in with new guidance. Stricter punishment for delaying restarts. More injury time added for stoppages. Yellow cards for simulation and provocation handed out more freely. But Simeone adapted. He always does. The philosophy reached its peak at the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. FIFA instructed referees to add all lost time to matches. Every stoppage, every substitution, every VAR check. Add it all. Suddenly, matches were stretching past 100 minutes regularly. England versus Iran went 117 minutes. Argentina versus France in the final hit 123 minutes, including extra time. That change came directly from years of teams like Atletico exploiting every second. Simeone's Atletico won La Liga in 2014 and 2021 against Barcelona and Real Madrid's billions. They reached 2 Champions League finals. They did it by making football uncomfortable, unpleasant, and unbearable for opponents. Love them or hate them, Atletico Madrid mastered the dark arts so thoroughly that the game itself had to evolve just to keep up.
Barcelona, 2008 to 2015. Under Pep Guardiola leadership, with Lionel Messi at the peak of his powers, they redefined football. Tiki-taka became philosophy. Pass, move, press, control. The ball never stopped. Opponents spent entire matches chasing shadows. But here's what people forget. Barcelona were kicked off the pitch, constantly. Teams realized they couldn't match Barca's technique, so they resorted to violence. Getafe, Atletico Madrid, even Real Madrid in Clásicos turned into fouling competitions. Stop Messi by any means necessary. Trip him, kick him, take him out, do whatever it takes. The numbers were staggering. Between 2008 and 2012, Messi was fouled more than any player in Europe's top 5 leagues. Some seasons over 100 times. He'd get kicked, pop back up, and keep running. Xavi and Iniesta faced the same treatment. Rotational fouling became a legitimate tactic. One defender fouls Messi, takes a yellow, gets subbed off. Fresh legs come on, foul him again. Referees and governing bodies realized they had a problem. If football wanted to showcase creativity, it had to protect it. By the early 2000s, La Liga and UEFA introduced new directives. Player protection became the priority. Harsher punishment for repeated fouls on the same player. Yellow cards for tactical fouling, given out more freely.
Referees instructed to recognize when a single player was being deliberately targeted. The 2010-11 Champions League semi-final between Barcelona and Real Madrid was the turning point. 4 Clásicos in 18 days. The matches were brutal. In the first leg at the Bernabeu, Pepe was sent off for a tackle so reckless it looked like he was trying to break Dani Alves in half. Studs up, full force into the shin. No attempt to play the ball, just pure aggression. Mourinho's Madrid committed 104 fouls across the 4 games. Barcelona won with football while getting battered physically. UEFA's match reports couldn't ignore it anymore. Football changed. Barcelona's dominance sparked the global shift toward possession football, pressing systems, and technical ability over physicality. But their brilliance came at a cost. A permanent crackdown on physical intimidation that still defines how referees call games today. Every creative player since has benefited from the protection Barcelona's genius forced into existence.
Real Madrid, 2009. They didn't just buy players, they shattered the transfer market. Florentino Perez returned as club president with one mission: make football's biggest statement. First came Cristiano Ronaldo for a world record £80 million from Manchester United. Then Kaká for £56 million. Then Karim Benzema. Then Xabi Alonso. Then Raúl Albiol. Then Álvaro Arbeloa. Then Esteban Granero. Then Álvaro Negredo. 8 major signings in one summer window. The total bill crossed €260 million. But here's what the headlines missed. By September 2009, Real Madrid's net debt sat at €327 million. The club was hemorrhaging money to chase glory, and they weren't alone. Manchester City had just been bought by Abu Dhabi's royal family and were spending like oil money was growing on trees. Chelsea under Roman Abramovich had already normalized 9-figure summer windows since 2003. The entire ecosystem was spiraling. UEFA had been watching this disaster unfold for over a year. They'd studied the finances. In 2009, a review showed more than half of 655 European clubs were losing money. About 20% were in genuine financial peril. Something had to change. And Real Madrid's summer spending spree became the perfect, spectacular example of everything that was broken. So, they acted. Just 2 months after Real Madrid's shopping spree, in September 2009, UEFA agreed to financial fair play regulations. President Michel Platini officially announced them in 2010. The concept was revolutionary. Clubs could only spend what they earned. No more sugar daddy billions. No more leveraging debt to buy titles. You want Galacticos? Fine, but your revenue better match your ambition. The FFP rules introduced the break-even requirement. Over a 3-year period, clubs couldn't lose more than €5 million without facing sanctions. Punishments ranged from fines to transfer bans to outright disqualification from European competitions. Implementation began in 2011-12, with full enforcement by 2013-14. The system wasn't perfect. Loopholes existed, but the principle stuck. Real Madrid had inadvertently become the poster child for unchecked spending. Their 2009 summer showed what the crisis looked like at its most extreme, and football's governing bodies finally drew the line. The regulations came into full effect, and clubs started getting sanctioned. Paris Saint-Germain got hit. Manchester City faced investigations. Even Barcelona had to watch their spending. The irony? Real Madrid thrived under FFP. Their global brand, massive stadium revenue, and commercial empire meant they could still outspend most clubs legally. They won 4 Champions Leagues between 2014 and 2018. But smaller clubs trying to replicate their 2009 blitz found themselves capped and stuck. Perez's spending spree forced football to confront its own sustainability. And now, every time a club wants to spend big, they have to prove they can afford it. Real Madrid spent so extravagantly that the sport invented a system to stop anyone else from doing the same. If you enjoyed this, I'd greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching.